Well, good evening. Glad you could join us here on TV47 Weekend. My name is Musa Salah. We have a lot lined up for you, but first, the top stories making headlines tonight. Interior CS Fred Matiang'i now says Meru Senator Mithika Linturi was arrested in connection to 37 alleged criminal charges. Also tonight, National Assembly Majority Leader Amos Kimunya leads the House leadership in hailing the passage of the BBI bill last night. Plus, 11 more people test positive for the Indian COVID-19 variant in Kibo's Kisumu County. The government stops mining in Ikolomani indefinitely to investigate a gold mine accident that killed 5 miners and injured 8 others. Well, welcome to the broadcast. Mini Mbesa is our sign language interpreter. Do talk to us. 22047 is our SMS line. You can also find us on social media, TV47 Kenya on Facebook, as well as at TV47K on Twitter. The hashtag to use is TV47 Weekend. Now on to our top story. Fresh details into the controversial arrest of Meru Senator Mithika Linturi last week have emerged, indicating the senator was briefly put behind bars over fraud and forgery allegations. A statement by Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i to the Senate Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations, seen by TV47, reveals that the senator was arrested over offenses committed between June and November 2018. And as David Mudhoka reports, the reports come amid a backlash from senators over their colleagues' brief detention, which they insist was politically motivated.
Barely a week after Meru Senator Mithika Linturi was arrested, then shortly detained at the DCI headquarters along Kiambu Road, Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i on Friday appeared virtually before Linturi's colleagues in the Senate Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations to explain the arrest that received backlash within political circles. In his statement to the House, Matiang'i revealed that the senator was shortly detained by DCI detectives over fraud and forgery allegations. Linturi and his co-accused Emily Nkirote, both of whom are directors of Aticon Limited, are accused of committing the offences between June and November 2018. Within the 5-month period, the accused duo is said to have borrowed a 100 million shillings loan without the consent of another shareholder, Kipchumba Ngetich. The duo then went on to procedurally remove Ngetich from the list of shareholders at Aticon Limited by impersonating him through forgery. According to Matiang'i, the allegations make up 37 criminal counts and that the prosecution is convinced that the 2 suspects have a case to answer. Upon his release on 28th April, Linturi had scoffed at the arrest, terming it political. Smelling a rat, he went on to cite how it happened on a day the Senate was discussing the BBI bill, a bill he has on several occasions opposed.
I find it very absurd because, Mr. Speaker, I would have been summoned to go to the DCI on Monday or yesterday or any other day. But doing it today, Mr. Speaker, is what is really annoying me and is very, very painful, very painful.
His colleagues in the Senate as well as in the National Assembly had earlier echoed Linturi's sentiments, forcing Senate Speaker Ken Lusaka to adjourn sittings twice ahead of Linturi's resurfacing.
If we let it continue, one of these days, policemen are going to come into the chamber, not just to arrest Linturi, to arrest the Speaker.
Because this chamber is supposed to be a chamber of debate. This is not a choir where we are supposed to agree or sing the same song.
Senator Linturi.
And while it seems as if ghosts of the first-time senator are catching up with him, it remains unclear when Linturi will be charged in court after his arraignment that had been scheduled for last week was pushed back. David Mudhoka, TV47.
Now, families of 5 people who died at Bushiangala gold mine Thursday evening continue to mourn their loved ones as leaders call on the national government to put in place proper mining strategies for miners in the country. And as Violet Auma now reports, the government has stopped all mining activities in Kakamega indefinitely until the Ikolomani tragedy is fully investigated.
It is a tragedy that claimed 5 lives and a number of casualties following a landslide last evening at Bushiangala gold mine in Ikolomani, Kakamega County. The family of James Shimenga, whose lifeless body was found buried under the rubble in the gold mine pit last evening, says he was the breadwinner in the family.
Tumesikia uchungu, nimepoteza mtoto wangu, amewacha bibi na watoto, hata sijui vile nitalinda hao watoto.
Na wakati nategemea yeye. Akiingia kwa shimo yeye ndio mtu wa kwanza kuingia. Maajabu tena yeye ndiye alikuwa mtu wa kwanza kufariki ndani ya shimo.
Leaders from the region led by Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya and the area MP Bernard Shinali have condoled with affected families.
Mahali mawe mchanga ilianguka, vile hiyo mchanga inaweza tolewa, watu wote tuhakikishe hakuna mtu tumewacha huko ndani. Kwa sababu tunaweza enda kama viongozi na watu wachukue jukumu lao waanze kutafuta watu wao hapo ndani.
Watafiti wamepata kwamba tuko na dhahabu hapa worth 200 billion. Mbona hujaleta hapa kampuni kubwa ya kimataifa kama Tulo ndio tukae na hiyo kampuni, tujue kampuni ikitoa dhahabu pesa kiasi gani wafanyikazi watalipwa, pesa kiasi gani kampuni itaenda nayo, pesa kiasi gani itaenda kwa national government, pesa kiasi gani itaenda kwa county government, na pesa kiasi gani itabaki Ikolomani na Shinyalu na Khwisero wenye udongo.
They now want the national government to put in place proper mining strategies and safeguards for more than 80,000 miners in the county.
Na walete modern equipment ambao nyinyi kama artisan miner mnaweza kutumia ili tujitenge na vifo kama ambazo tumekuwa nazo.
Watu 1080 kufanya kazi hii, itatakiwa hii mining iwe regulated. Kwa sababu wakati mwingine tunaweza kupata shida na uweze kuwalaumu watoto wetu ambao wanafanya hapa kazi.
Atuambie zile safeguards za security, yani ni mbinu gani zenye ataweka katika hii biashara ndio kama mtu ameenda chini asipoteze maisha yake.
8 people rescued in the gold mine are admitted in different hospitals in Kakamega County. Government officials have stopped all mining activities in the area indefinitely, fearing more tragic incidents following the heavy downpour in the region. Violet Auma, TV47, Kakamega.
Now, the National Assembly leadership has chided the Tanga faction following the huge win in the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020, which was on Thursday night passed by 225 yes votes against 63 no votes. Addressing the media at Parliament buildings, the MPs say the win signifies the win in the upcoming referendum and the 2022 general elections. Nonetheless, DP Ruto allied members say they are firmly behind him despite voting otherwise on the bill. Take a look.
Yesterday was the death of Tanga in this country. We are just waiting for the burial date, which is 2022. On 9th of August 2022 is the burial date. But the death was announced last night in the most sacred place, the August House of the Republic of Kenya, is where we announced the death of Tanga as it was known.
It's National Assembly's Minority Whip Junet Mohammed chiding the Tanga faction, which according to him, it's dead and awaiting burial in 2022. On Thursday, 224 members of parliament passed the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020 against 63 members who voted against the bill. National Assembly Majority Leader Amos Kimunya says they are expecting the Senate to take the same path next week.
Then the Senate will do their bit and they'll transmit. What we expect is IEBC to give us a date within 90 days to have a referendum, because the import of Article 257, if you remember, people fought, people died, clamoring for a change of constitution.
Of course, during negotiation is give and take. No Kenyan has lost anything in this referendum. You might have lost one piece, but gained the other. Therefore, compound together, every Kenyan has gained from this referendum.
Despite the Tanga faction claiming to have numbers in the bicameral parliament, this, according to the BBI proponents, is just a fallacy. Yesterday, some of the DP Ruto's allies voted for the bill.
It has demystified many myths that have been going on in this country, which was we have the numbers. Yesterday, people have realized they don't have numbers. They only have maybe telephone numbers of their supporters. Because look at the numbers, 2/3. I remember when Prime Minister Raila Odinga and President Kibaki wanted to remove people from the ICC, they couldn't get 2/3 here.
You know, we have the numbers, In fact, what we have finally realized is that they have the phone numbers. It is not the actual numbers. It is actually, I think, the phone numbers that they have of all members of parliament. But in terms of the actual voting, all Kenyans have seen.
But what really pushed DP Ruto's allies to change their tune over the BBI bill, despite of being against it for the longest time?
People are saying some of them I could have not gone no. I'm the side of the DP deputy president. I'm his supporter. I'm his big supporter. But who have ever heard the DP saying no?
Which, as a hustler, my prayer is to avoid a referendum, to avoid them versus us, to avoid a no-yes campaign in the referendum that will divide Kenyans in the middle, like what we saw in 2005. We don't want that.
More questions are rising on Deputy President's true numbers and support in the bicameral parliament and Mount Kenya region, where he was believed to have made political inroads.
That a constitution is a living organ, is a living document. It continuously turns from good to better, better to best as we go to the future. So zile vitu ambazo hazimo, there will always be an opportunity to include them at a later stage.
Hivyo stages zote zimepita, sasa tumeingia kwa stage ambayo itakuja kwa mwananchi. Viongozi wenu kwa bunge wamemwonyesha mwelekeo kwa vile wamepiga kura. Sasa mpira utarudi kwetu kule mashinani. Tujitahidi, tutekeleze safari hii ikwishe vizuri.
It is now a game of numbers with which political factions should marshal up supporters to rally behind the cause. On whether this will replicate in the Senate next week is a matter of wait and see. Elizabeth Mutuku, TV47 Pal Biddings, Nairobi.
Well, politics of numbers and phone numbers there. Let's quickly take a look at some of your comments on Facebook. Dennis Kibiwot Kilel says he is watching us from all the way from Olbanata Solai. Thank you, Kibiwot. Enos Omodi, always watching TV47 Weekend. Eunice Adhiambo also says she's tuned in, as well as Namisu Gift all the way from UAE, Dubai. And Alex says Burundi is also following us on Facebook. Keep talking to us. 22047 is our SMS line. You can also find us on social media, TV47KE on Twitter, as well as at TV47 Kenya on Facebook. The hashtag to use is TV47 Weekend. It's time to take a short commercial break, but we'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Also coming up, COVID-19 accelerating food shortage. 98 million people in Africa faced hunger in 2020.
You are watching TV47.
Welcome back. You're watching TV47 Weekend. Now, Thursday's BBI vote in Parliament came as a shock to Deputy President William Ruto's allies, as at least 7 Tanga members of Parliament voted in support of the bill. Ruto's pointman in Nakuru and Bahati Member of Parliament Kimani Ngunjiri was among the 7 who supported the bill in Parliament. And although a section of Tanga MPs have called out the lawmakers as sellouts, Ngunjiri maintains that he has not betrayed the Deputy President. The vote on the BBI bill in Parliament on Thursday has sparked divisions within the Tanga section of Jubilee Party, allied to Deputy President William Ruto. In the parliamentary vote, in which at least 225 members of Parliament voted in favor of the bill, at least 7 Tanga MPs changed tune. Ruto allies Bahati Member of Parliament Kimani Ngunjiri and his nominated counterpart David Ole Sankok, who have been vocal opposers of the BBI bill, voted affirmatively.
Representing 6.5 million Kenyans with disability, I vote yes.
I, Onesmus Kimani Ngunjiri, MP Bahati, I vote yes.
Their Tanga counterparts who voted against the bill could not believe the sudden change of views on the bill, with Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro accusing the 7 of betraying Deputy President William Ruto.
I say a big no. No to deception, no to conmanship. And to those of you making noise, there is nothing you can do to me. Cowards, traitors, sellouts.
However, according to Ngunjiri, his decision was informed by the BBI gains in Nakuru County.
But who have ever heard the DP saying no? Who have ever heard him saying that? He have never said no. So he left for us to use our own wisdom. Somebody to see whether you are going to be yes or no. Because we are also leaders on our own way. And also politics about interest.
How would you expect the Honorable Kimani Ngunjiri, right, representing Nakuru County, the second most densely populated yet underrepresented county in this country, which is getting an extra 5 constituencies? How do you expect him, in a clear conscience, to say no to the benefits going to Nakuru?
I'm the one who convinced Sankok. You can go and ask him. When I spoke, he came to me and told me, you have convinced me, I'm going to vote yes.
And he also knows he's not.
And he also knows that the ground is not speaking what he's saying.
Among the 7 DP Ruto's allies who voted for the bill include Mara Member of Parliament Kareki Mbiuki, Ainabkoi's William Chepkut, and his Njoro counterpart Purity Kathambi. Others are Nakuru East Legislator David Gikaria, Malava lawmaker Malulu Injendi, and Chepalungu's Gideon Koske. Tanga's division in Parliament over the BBI bill has cast a shadow over the loyalty of DP Ruto's allies ahead of the 2022 general election. Now, away from politics, 11 more workers from the Kibos fertilizer plant in Kisumu County have tested positive for the Indian COVID-19 strain. This is according to the Ministry of Health, that now says Kibos residents should keep off the fenced area as the total number of people infected with the Indian strain rises to 16. Meanwhile, Health CS Mutahi Kagwe has warned counties with little uptake of the COVID-19 vaccine to increase the number of to increase their number or have their vaccines redeployed to other counties with better uptake. This coming at a time when COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy in Africa threatens the entire exercise.
Days after the government confirmed the presence of the Indian COVID strain in the country, the number of people infected by the strain is slowly rising as more testing and contact tracing continues. According to the Ministry of Health, out of 50 workers from the Kibos fertilizer plant, 16 have tested positive for the variant.
One of the considerations we have is that when the institution management realized that there had so many positives, they isolated the positives and continued then identifying more positive among those who are turned negative. Indeed, among those that are turned negative, about 50, another 8 turned positive again.
The government, however, insists the area has been well safeguarded and that Kibos residents should keep off the fenced area, as scientists now consider the variant 15 times lethal as compared to the other variants.
As long as there are new variants coming into the country, and they will come to the country, no matter how much effort we put in, there is not a single country, unless you close your borders completely, and allow nobody in and nobody out. That is the only way you can be sure. And even then, you never know.
Meanwhile, Health CS Mutahi Kagwe has warned counties with little uptake of the COVID-19 vaccine to increase the number or have their vaccines redeployed to other counties with better uptake. According to Kagwe, the vaccine shelf life is slowly approaching its expiry, hence the move to ensure all vaccines end up in the arms of Kenyans.
We cannot have the vaccines expire. We must therefore recapture and redistribute in areas that counties are slow at carrying out the exercise.
This comes at a time when COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy across Africa threatens the entire exercise, as experts warn that certain parts of Africa could take years to use up the limited shots available in their countries, let alone inoculate the entire adult population as previously targeted. A total of 911,515 people have been vaccinated in the country so far.
There's lots of people who are still holding out on the vaccine. Quite a number of people are still waiting for something to show up. A lot of people are still very apprehensive about the side effects.
Meanwhile, Kenya has today recorded a total of 568 new COVID-19 cases, 173 recoveries, and 15 new deaths. Zainab Mohammed, TV47.
Well, thank you, Zainab Mohammed, for that report. Now, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has sent a stern warning to private schools, forcing parents to pay school fees for grade 4 pupils before the 26th of July this year, when they are supposed to report back to school. And as Daniel Masiza reports, Magoha has also revealed that the 2020 KCSE results will be released after the experts are done certifying them.
After a 7-week break with a surge in COVID-19 cases clouding the reopening of schools across the country, pupils and students will be back in class on Monday, 10th May 2021. Speaking at Starehe Boys Center in Nairobi during the closure of 2020 KCSE marking exercise and outlining Term 3 school opening measures, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha reiterated that only PP1, PP2 grades 1 to 3, standard 5 to 7 pupils and students from Form 1 to 3 will report back on Monday.
That education stakeholders group had all the private school owners there. They were represented, including the international school owners, whom I also believe are here. So there is no special child for His Excellency the President. In fact, he's more attracted to the poor child who is in the slums. So I hope that matter is rested, because we have received reports that certain people have already sent fee guidelines that they want their grade 4s to report. Go and create your country, create your government, and then create your university. Over the next couple of days, we are going to move to the next level, which will require certain experts to do certain things, and therefore there should be no rumors as to when the exam results will be ready. They will be ready when they are ready.
Outlining the Term 3 school opening measures, Magoha also revealed that 7.5 billion shillings has been wired to schools' accounts to beef up operations.
To ensure that you get COVID ready by Monday. Further, we have requested the third term 13 billion for secondary schools and 2.8 billion for primary schools. And I think this money should be available towards the end of next week.
It is now all systems go regarding back to school on Monday for primary school pupils and secondary school students, except for grade 4 pupils who will be back in school in July. Daniel Masiza, TV47.
Daniel Masiza's report takes us to a short commercial break, but we'll be back with more. Remember, you can follow this live broadcast on www.tv47.co.ke. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Nairobi Christian Center, Bahati. We are an Assemblies of God church under Reverend Fred Gitahi. Our online church services happen.
Welcome back. You are watching TV47 Weekend. Now, Lamu Port is expected to start operation soon. A maiden voyage vessel is expected to dock at the port by the end of May. The economic status of Lamu County is also expected to grow by a huge margin once the port begins operations. Our reporter Petronila Goren visited the residents to get their views ahead of the official opening of the Lamu Port.
After the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury and Planning Ukur Yatani announced on Thursday that Lamu Port was ready to start its operation later this month, TV47 embarked on the streets of Lamu to find out hopes, expectations and fears the residents had in relation to the project.
Tumefurahia na tumeona manufaa ya kununuliwa mara mashamba yetu. Hizo pesa zimetusaidia kusomesha watoto yetu. Na ndio tunauliza hivyo tulinunuliwa mara kwa mashamba hii yetu, tukaweza kusomesha watoto yetu ya hapa, mtuandikie hao watoto.
Ule poti haiko imeanza kujengwa. Sema kweli vibarua vilikuwa ni vigumu sana kuzipata. Wakati tulikuwa tunatembea mwendo wa kilomita nyingi sana kwenda kutafuta kazi. Huku naona bado hakujaanza kuimarika. Lakini tangu poti ilipoanza basi vibarua maana tunaitwa vibarua kule potini kwenda kufanya makazi huko. Naona kuna mabadiliko makubwa.
According to traders here in Lamu, the port has boosted their sales and opened up more business opportunities.
Mimi kama mwanabiashara naona kuna faida kwa sababu hao watu wakikuja tunawabeba tunawapeleka kule wanatulipa vizuri.
Kwa kusema ukweli hii port imetusaidia sababu pia kibiashara zetu zimeinuka kulingana na watu wenye wanafanya kazi pale. So biashara zetu haziendi vizuri, zinaenda vibaya sana. Lakini kwa saa hii na tunategemea kutakuwa kuzuri zaidi ikifunguliwa.
They said roads have been constructed as a result of the port easing their movement.
At least barabara imesukumwa mbio. Sasa hii usafiri wa kutoka hapa kwenda Nairobi atupiti sasa Mombasa, tunanyorosha. Alafu sasa imekuwa ni haraka, tunaenda na siku moja.
Despite the advantages, residents say more should be done to complement the expected rise in population in the area. The real estate sector is one of those that need an intervention.
Manyumba wameanza kuja kutafuta manyumba hakuna. Kwa hivyo tunaomba wafadhili wengine kama wanajua wakuje wanunue mashamba hapa. Wakinunua mashamba wajenge manyumba kwa sababu manyumba hatuna. Watu wale watakuja kufanya kazi hapa kwa poti. Hakuna nyumba.
Residents are also said to benefit from the ongoing construction of a jetty at Mkoe area. The jetty will ensure safe boarding and alighting of passengers from the boat. The jetty construction is part of Lamu Port corporate social responsibility. As Lamu residents continue enjoying the fruits of the port, majority of them are hopeful that more job opportunities will arise. For TV47 from Lamu County, I'm Petronila Goren.
Well, thank you, Petronila Goren, for that report. Now, two fishermen who escaped death by a whisker at the Masinga Dam while fishing have narrated the ordeal they went through when their boat capsized. Their two colleagues were, however, not lucky. Our reporter Boniface Barasa has this and more from the counties.
Benson Mwasia still recalls the Monday incident, which he says was triggered by a heavy storm that overwhelmed their boat. Two of his colleagues drowned as they were unable to swim due to the strong wind that was blowing.
Tulikuwa tu harakati za kazi. Alafu upepo ikazidi. Sasa harakati za upepo boti tulikuwa na ikazama. Tulikuwa 4. Wenye tulifaulu tukiwa wawili. Wenzetu wawili walizama kwa maji.
The bodies of the two were retrieved after they were found floating this morning, according to Zipora Mtiso, the area chief. Elsewhere, rice farmers at Ahero are staring at possible losses following an invasion by birds in their rice fields. The farmers have been forced to spend more time and money in chasing the birds away.
Sijui ndege hii serikali nalipa nini? Nakula nini mchele karibu nini maleza. Sasa ile kitu iko nataka serikali kusaidia sisi.
We have a serious problem of birds. There's too many, uncontrollable. I don't know where they've come from. They are eating almost everything that we have in the fields. We are pleading with the government to please find a way of helping us.
And in Nakuru County, residents of Subukia have declared an increase in cases of deforestation of Subukia and Bahati forests, terming it an environmental hazard.
Hizo siku za kitambo Subukia used to be green. Na condition ilikuwa wanasemanga wet and cold. Yeah, ilikuwa throughout the year. Na mmetembea hapa hata nyinyi mwenye mmejionea like mali kwingine ni story tunasikia like mvua inanyesha in plenty. Since hii rainy season ianze, we haven't received any rain. Na pia mnaona mashamba already ishatayarishwa.
The residents have pointed an accusation finger at the county government of Nakuru, saying it has done little to curb the vice. Bonfas Barasa, TV47.
Now, hundreds of Somali forces who back the opposition have begun returning to their bases after reaching an agreement with the Prime Minister following clashes over the tenure of the president. A spokesman for the troops said Somali lawmakers voted last Saturday to overturn the 2-year presidential term extension they had approved last month after the violence stirred fears of an all-out war between heavily armed troops for and against the president. The agreement to end the months-long standoff included demands that opposition allied forces return to bases within 48 hours, that soldiers be apolitical, and a promise that soldiers who supported the opposition would not be penalized. The crisis had raised the fears that Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab insurgents could exploit a security vacuum if state forces split along clan lines and turned on each other. Now, at least 20 more million people around the world are facing acute food insecurity since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic a year ago. Initially, conflict was the main driver of food crisis at the global level, followed by economic shocks and weather extremes. However, the pandemic has accelerated the pace of starvation.
Over the last 5 years, acute food insecurity has steadily risen. A report by the Global Network Against Food Crisis reveals that at least 155 million people experienced acute food shortage across 55 countries as at 2020.
Of course, the suffering inflicted by the COVID-19 pandemic was on our television screens every evening. But what this report also tells us is that in addition to that human misery, 155 million women, children, and men were enduring in 2020 what we call high levels of acute food insecurity. That actually represented an increase of around 20 million people compared to the last edition of this global report on food crisis.
1 year after COVID-19 spread across the world, the 2021 edition of the Global Report on Food Crises, or GRFC, confirms that the pandemic and related containment measures have aggravated the impact of pre-existing fragilities, notably conflict and climate change.
99 million people were facing food insecurity, acute food insecurity, in 23 countries and territories, where conflict and insecurity were the primary drivers. Climate disruptions and weather extremes, such as droughts and floods, were the third most significant drivers of acute hunger in 2020.
The resulting economic hardship has widened inequalities and exposed the structural vulnerabilities of local and global food systems, hitting already fragile vulnerable groups. Dominic Barjon, the Director of Emergencies and Resilience at the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, proposes an anti-hunger tact aimed at ensuring that all households can access sufficient nutritious food.
We know from experience that even in difficult crisis contexts, it is possible to help people produce food that keeps them alive. We know that no matter what, no matter the situation they are in, farmers are farmers, and they will try to keep farming, even in the most difficult circumstances. Our goal, therefore, is to help them farming. Preventing famine starts with producing food, right where it is most needed.
Close to 98 million people facing acute food insecurity as at 2020 were on the African continent. This is 63% of the global share. Barjon explains that early warnings and endorsement of political and socio-economic reforms will help avert a future food crisis.
Anticipating crisis with on-the-ground real-time early warning and rapid action when we see a deterioration. It also means strengthening social safety nets so that when a crisis happens, people have somewhere to turn to. It also means advocacy that is backed up by political commitment and sufficient funds to rectify the overwhelming impact and burden of climate extremes on the most vulnerable.
This report by the International Alliance of UN, governmental and non-governmental agencies reveals that the number of hunger-stricken people is at its peak and are urging all stakeholders to intervene. Grace Josephine for TV47.
Well, let's take a look at some business news. And Agriculture CS Peter Munya has toured the Namanga border post, where he released trucks transporting maize that had been held there for several weeks. This follows a directive by President Uhuru Kenyatta during a joint business forum with his Tanzanian counterpart Samia Suluhu Hassan in Nairobi on Wednesday. The lorries are importing maize from Tanzania. Munya reiterated President Kenyatta's sentiments that trade barriers between Kenya and Tanzania will be eliminated. CS Munya also assured long-distance truck drivers that COVID-19 test results at the border will take a maximum of 12 hours.
Within this month, we'll have a meeting, a bilateral meeting between the ministers concerned from Tanzania and ourselves to harmonize all those other things. Remember, maize is just one of the emergency issues that we have to deal with quickly. But all the other issues that make it difficult for us to trade with one another, all those issues are going to be discussed in a bilateral meeting already planned before the end of May.
Barely a week after President Uhuru Kenyatta directed the reopening of bars in the 5 red zone counties, bar owners and operators in the country are still in the woods. According to them, the reopening has done little to ease their pain, citing the 2-hour opening window between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. as not enough for business. The stakeholders are now appealing to the government to consider expanding their business window. Our reporter Laban Lekishon visited several bars and clubs in Nairobi this evening, where he spoke with the stakeholders.
Just a week after President Kenyatta allowed bars and restaurants to resume their businesses, we are trying to find out how they are working and if the 2 hours given are enough for them and if they are following any containment measures that they were given. We had spoken to Frank Mbogo, the chair of PERAC, an association of bars and restaurant owners.
First, let me thank the President for having done that and having listened to our cries. But what I can request him is to tell him that the 2 hours he has given us are just too short. We are not able to do any business. In fact, what I can say is just not making any economical sense for us to open these restaurants for 2 hours. So we are kindly requesting the President, if he would add some few more hours, we want a bit comfortable with 9 o'clock closing. And during that time, we were able to bring back our employees, practically all of them. We have been trying to go through our Minister of Tourism, who has also promised to talk to MOH, because as a matter of fact, hospitality business, we are the people who are following protocols more than any other business. And so we do not understand why we are the ones who are being punished. Because if we look at matatus, supermarkets, city markets like Gikomba, they are all operating. And unfortunately, they are operating without following protocols.
Well, just to sample some of your comments on Facebook, Havila Juma is saying she's watching us from Saudi Arabia. Faith Bothuwak from Uganda. Mwandawiro Victor says he's also watching and following the news here on TV47 Weekend. Eunice Adhiambo says she's also tuned in. And just a couple of more comments on Facebook. Keep talking to us. 22047 is our SMS line. You can also find us on social media, TV47 Kenya on Facebook, as well as at TV47K on Twitter. The hashtag to use is TV47 Weekend. Now, farmers in Ahero irrigation scheme have expressed fears of huge losses in rice harvests if nothing is done immediately to avert the destruction at their rice fields caused by a huge swarm of birds. A total of 260 acres of rice fields are under attack by the birds, and farmers have had to spend the whole day in makeshift camps scaring the hungry birds away. Some are employing up to 4 laborers per acre at a fee of 3,500 shillings per person for the bird. For the bird chasing role, rather, they are now appealing to both levels of government to hasten measures of helping them arrest the situation.
Shida iko hapa kwa ya mchele. Watu unachunga eka moja, karibu watu 4. Pesa ya kulipa watu 4 ni karibu 14,000. Hiyo ndio tabu iko zaidi kusinda. Sijui ndege hii serikali nalipa nini. Nakula mchele karibu maleza. Sasa ile kitu iko nataka serikali kusaidia sisi.
We have a serious problem of birds. There's too many, uncontrollable. I don't know where they've come from. They are eating almost everything that we have in the fields. We are pleading with the government to please find a way of helping us by reducing the number, even through the spraying through aeroplane that they have always been doing.
Well, it's time to take a look at what is happening in the world of sports, and our sportsman Dennis Otieno is on standby on the other side of the studio. Good evening, Dennis. What do you have for us this evening?
Well, good evening to you.